All right, what's going on, everybody? It is Professing Preterist, Truth and Telos Ministries, now known as, and wanted to talk about something very important. There is a change coming on the horizons, okay? There is a fundamental change coming to how money works. It's always been the focus of my ministry to just preach the word of God and perform polemics and apologetics for full preterism. But I think the time is now coming to where the focus needs to be more on where we are at as a society, where we are at with our sovereignty, where all things are leading to. And this might just be, just because part of what I do for a living. But there is something called the service layers of digital currency. And essentially, the digitization of everything is coming. This is kind of the scary part of the future of where we're at. Let me explain. So, this right here is straight from the Bureau for International Settlements, the BIS. The Bank for International Settlements. You can see it right down here in teeny tiny letters. Bank for International Settlements. What the BIS does is they monitor and essentially have some form of input on the monetary systems across the world. Okay. This is what the CBDC architecture looks like, okay? Now look at the language here. There's a legal claim, and then there's real-time communication, and then there's a deferred communication if it's a dotted line. The deferred communications are typically from the central bank to the underlying bank. But I want you guys to notice something very important here. The legal claim. So, not a lot of people are aware about this, okay? But every country has a constitution. Every country has a set of laws and rules and regulations. I can only speak for the United States of America at this point in time because I just don't want to give any other kind of false information about another country. But in the United States of America, we have the Constitution, and then you've got the 27 amendments. The language of the Constitution is legalism. It's all lawyer language that's put together in such a way that we are entered into this contract with the United States government by being citizens of this country, whether you're a natural born citizen or you get your citizenship or some form of citizenship, right? Like a work visa, etc. So you have to be subject to the law of the land. The way that a CBDC is designed is that you have no claim legally to anything. You may have heard the term, you'll own nothing and be happy. That's exactly what tokenization and a CBDC is designed to do. The legal equitable interest is held by the central bank. Because they are the ones that own the contracts, okay? So that's another thing that you have to understand. Smart contracts on the blockchain essentially are how you move money in this, new digital world that we're going to be entering, okay? So what a smart contract is it's a digital agreement stored on the blockchain that executes automatically when predetermined conditions are met. And equitable interest is held by the issuing central bank. When you're using YouTube, for example, you are agreeing to terms and conditions by using YouTube. When you're using a digital currency, you are agreeing to the terms and conditions by using that digital currency. So the terrifying thing about this is that we are going to be living in a world where anything that you would perceive as wealth or equity is going to be bound up on a smart contract and broken down into tokenization to be made teeny tiny bits of information that can be instantly accessed. So how is this relevant, right? How is this relevant to what I do with my ministry and talking about the Word of God? Well, it really comes down to being worried for people. Looking back here at Romans 13, let's look at what Paul says. Verse 1, let every soul subordinate itself to the superior having authorities. For there is no authority except, or if not, from God. But the authorities, or those who are the authorities, right? Those being the authorities that are ones having been ordered by God. So that he who is opposing the authority or ordering against the authority has withstood the thorough order of God. But those having withstood will take judgment for themselves. For the arch persons are not causers of fear on account of good work, but on account of the bad. And if you do not want to fear the authority, do the good, and you will have praise from it. For it is the servant of God for you into the good. But if you do the badness, fear, for it does not carry the sword imaginally, or without real foundation. For it is the servant of God, out justifying, leading into wrath, to him who is practicing badness. Therefore, there is necessity to subordinate oneself, not only because of wrath, but also because of the conscience. For therefore, you also give as duty taxes, for they are officiators of God, holding steadfastly to this same thing. So to this, officiators to collect taxes kind of thing. Give to all the indebtedness. To whom the tax, to whom the duty, to whom the fear, to whom the valuation. What is Paul saying in these 7 verses? It's going right back to this system of governmentation that we exist under, okay? What Paul is saying is don't do anything crazy. Don't try and fight against the system. Right? You subordinate yourself into the system. When you're subordinated into the system, we're subordinated to the judges and the police and the politicians and the presidents and everything. You take judgment for yourself. Because these people, they don't cause fear on account of having good works come out of it. They cause fear because they want bad things to happen out of it. And that's why it says here, if you do not want to fear the authority, do the good, and you will have praise out from it. This is like very counterintuitive, I think, right? To what we normally would think about. When we think about God, we think about, oh, well, we're not supposed to be of this world, and there's all these things that, we're supposed to be different, right? Well, Jesus Christ kind of tells his disciples that they need to mind their P's and Q's, right? Somebody strikes you on the cheek, turn the other one and tell them to strike that one too. Subordinating themselves to the authority. but that's Jew to Jew. Whereas Paul is now speaking for Gentiles and talking about the other authorities, because no Gentile was ever under the authority of the Sanhedrin, right? They were never like, well, yeah, I gotta answer to this high priest over here, the old high priest in Jerusalem. No, 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 no. So I guess what I'm saying, just to make this really make sense for everybody, is we are moving into a digital system. Okay. The Word of God has given us the ability to know how to work inside of such systems. Eastgate Adoptionist says, in full preterism 2.0, you understand that Jesus returned, but that wasn't the end of the book of Revelation. Okay. I mean, technically, because otherwise, like, you'd have to be Israel only. But you've got verses 14 and 15 at the end of the book, Revelation 22, 14 and 15, says that there's people outside the covenant and they can wash their robes and they can abide by the rules of the new covenant. And if not, you go back outside and you become the sorcerer, a mongrel, literally like a dirty dog, a fornicator, a murderer, an idolater, or you start befriending falsification. I would say this is talking about false religions, personally. That's still relevant today, right? Otherwise, you have to be Israel only. But, oh, well, that literally only applied to the first century. Only Israel was saved, etc., etc. I want to bring up... Yeah, I'm going to just do this real quick. I'm going to bring something up I wanted to show. All right. I'm going to pull this up real quick, like. So that way we can all see something. When we talk about CBDCs and tokenization, okay, we're told that central bank digital currencies and the tokenization of everything will usher in an era of unprecedented financial efficiency, inclusion, and innovation. The vision painted is one of instantaneous, low-cost global payments, democratized access to investments through fractional ownership, and a modern, transparent, and streamlined financial system for all. This narrative of progress and convenience is compelling, but what lies beneath the surface of this digital dream? Well, let's take a look here at something. Yeah, we could talk about the 3 pillars of digital control. So you've got a fully tokenized economy centered around CBDCs, resting on interconnected pillars that grant unprecedented power to central authorities. Pillar A is absolute surveillance. In a CBDC system, the central bank, and by extension the government, gains a real-time, immutable record of every single transaction. The concept of financial privacy as we know it, especially the kind afforded by cash, ceases to exist. Every purchase, every donation, every movement of your digital currency is logged and analyzed. Then there's implications of this too. Creation of a permanent, unalterable dossier of your financial activities. Potential for linkage with digital ID, creating comprehensive profiles for social scoring or behavioral nudging. A chilling effect on dissent, free association, or any activity deemed unfavorable by authorities. Then you've got the programmable money and automated censorship. CBDCs are not just digital cash, they are programmable instruments. Smart contracts can automatically enforce rules dictated by the issuer, conditional spending, expiry dates and negative interest, behavior-linked access, and instantaneous freezing or seizure. Then you've got the evaporation of true ownership. Tokenization aims to convert all real-world assets, your home, land, and investments, into digital tokens. While this is sold as increasing liquidity and democratizing access via fractional ownership, it fundamentally alters your relationship to these assets. You own a digital representation, a claim within their system, not the tangible asset itself. Your equity is subtly transformed into spendable, taxable, and controllable digital units. And then you've got the illusion of ownership. Real assets become abstract tokens. Your direct title and control diminish significantly. The core and service layers of these digital tokens, as described in technical documentation and white papers, mean your traditional ownership rights are redefined and mediated by the issuer and the embedded smart contracts, not by inherent possession. The service layer is where power lies. There's no guarantee you can convert these tokens back to the physical underlying asset, especially if the service layer rules change or are triggered against your interest. And this is an incremental surrender of your equity and control, one itty-bitty trade at a time, often without full understanding of the terms. There's a contractual web, and this is the legalism layer by layer. So this entire shift towards a tokenized, CBDC-centric economy can be understood through the lens of legalism and layered contracts. The argument is that the foundational societal agreements are being subtly yet profoundly amended by new digital, quote, terms of service that individuals are increasingly compelled to accept. The original contract, the constitutional framework as legal agreements. Nations like the United States were founded on documents like the Constitution, which, from a legalistic viewpoint, act as a foundational societal contract. The preamble says, "We, the people, do ordain and establish," and that acts as an offer and acceptance to form a government within specific aims. Also, just so you guys are aware, when it says the term "we, the people," we read that and think, oh, that's including us. No, it's not. It does not include you. We, the people, is talking about the people that were writing the Constitution. We are subordinated to those people by being citizens of the United States. If you are a citizen of the United States, right? Legalism is very tricky because they use terms to try and make you feel like, hey, this is good. Yeah, we the people. Who's the we? There's also enumerated powers, like Article 1, Section 8, to coin money, regulate the value thereof. It defines the government's authorized scope of work. And then you've also got the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. The right of the people to be secure against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Represents explicit limitations on governmental power, the people's non-negotiable terms. There's due process clauses as well. Not to be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Those are contractual guarantees of fair procedure. And the Supremacy Clause establishes the Constitution as a supreme binding agreement. These are not just statements of principle, but can be interpreted as the core terms of an original binding agreement between the citizenry and the state. The CBDC addendum is a new layer of binding digital contracts. So a central bank digital currency system introduces a critical new layer to this contractual framework. Terms of service as new contracts. To use a CBDC, individuals will inevitably agree to extensive terms of service. This is an explicit new contract, likely dense with legalism, drafted by the issuing authority. These terms could grant unprecedented rights to the issuer over user data, transaction monitoring, and the very functionality of the CBDC. Consent by compelled use. If CBDCs become the primary or only practical means of transaction, e.g. if physical cash is phased out or made difficult to use, participation and thus consent to its terms becomes less of a choice and more of a compulsion for economic survival. Programmability as self-enforcing contractual terms. The smart contract nature of CBDCs means restrictions, expiry dates, automated taxation, or behavioral conditions are embedded directly into the currency. The contract forces itself automatically and instantaneously, potentially bypassing traditional legal recourse. Data as a contractual condition. The comprehensive data generated by every CBDC transaction becomes an asset for the issuer. The contract of using a CBDC may implicitly or explicitly in fine print mean you are ceding ownership or control over this vast trove of personal financial data, which can then be used to enforce other aspects of the broader social contract or new undeclared objectives. Altering the original contract, this new CBDC contractual layer has the potential to fundamentally alter, diminish, or override pre-existing rights to privacy, property, and financial autonomy that we understood under the original contract, e.g. the Constitution. The legalism involved would likely frame these erosions as necessary for security, efficiency, or public good. Through this lens, legalism, the intricate, often opaque, and layered language of contracts, laws, and terms of service, becomes the very mechanism through which individual autonomy is progressively and contractually surrendered. CBDCs, with their embedded programmability and total surveillance, represent the next and perhaps most encompassing and inescapable iteration of this binding contractual framework, creating the conditions for economic servitude. When these pillars converge, total surveillance, programmable money controlling your spending, the illusion of ownership over tokenized assets, and an all-encompassing contractual framework via CBDCs, the outcome is a profound loss of individual financial autonomy. Your economic life becomes conditional, dependent on the rules and permissions of a centralized digital authority. This ecosystem could realize the World Economic Forum's infamous projection: you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. But who defines this happiness? Who truly benefits when the populace owns nothing and all assets are mere digital permissions within a controlled system bound by layers of legalistic contracts? This is not freedom. This is the architecture of economic servitude built on a foundation of legalism and digital control. So, all of that to say we got to go back to Paul. Give to all the indebtedness, to whom the tax, to whom the duty, to whom the fear, to whom the valuation. So what do we do with this information, huh? We really need to understand the future of society, the future of finances. And I believe that God has put in his word how we can go along with this system while still having our own autonomy. Well, that's what the focus of my ministry has become. I'll still do apologetics and polemics for full preterism, fulfilled covenantal eschatology, however you want to frame that. But I also want to provide assistance for people to be able to hold their wealth privately outside of this digitized economy. So that's all I've got for today, guys. Been about 31 minutes here live. I really want you to think about what we just read. Do you agree that a digital economy is coming? CBDCs are going to take over fiat currency? If you don't, tell me why. I'd love to talk about that. Until next time, take it easy.